Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the opportunity to present key findings and implications we see for broadband service providers from our recent analysis of broadband data usage. Today, in addition to our look at the key findings from our fourth quarter OpenVault Broadband Insights Report, we're going to have a panel discussion about the state of broadband and the critical impact of quality of experience with our CEO and founder, Mark Trudeau, and our Chief Product Officer, Brady Volpe. This report serves not just as a look at Q4 data, but a chance to look at 2023 in total. To set the stage, according to the World Broadband Association, the broadband industry continues to be one of the most important industries in the world, connecting 3.4 billion people, 1.3 billion households, and more than 222 million business premises at the end of last year. In subscription revenues alone, the industry generated global revenues of $327 billion and revenue growth of 6% and 5% respectively over the year. Also, just because she's everywhere, we also want to point out that Taylor Swift has generated $1.82 billion in revenue, record sales, concerts, merchandise, and probably something from the Chiefs, but that's, we're not sure about that. In addition, a Q4 research paper from Omnia pointed out that while access to high speed continues to be a priority, quality of experience has come to the forefront of the industry as important, if not more important, than speed. So, what have we uncovered in our fourth quarter release of our OpenVault Broadband Insights Report, and what do they mean for broadband service providers? Let's get into it. As we go, if you have any questions, please submit them in our Q&A. If we don't get to your answers in this call, we'll certainly get back to you with answers. For those of you new to our report, just a few words about how we generate this. Our network of performance solutions gather broadband usage data generated by our 150 plus broadband provider customers in North America, Latin America, and Europe, and once within our platform, combine to create a holistic pool of data across millions of subscriber data usage records, subscriber data usage records, into which we execute a series of powerful analytic queries such as overall usage, tiered usage, plan and plan migrations. These then yield insights which have implications for broadband providers, and we present that within our quarterly OpenVault Broadband Industry Report advisories, or what we call OVBIs. So that's how we get the information and develop the insights. So let's start with the key findings. What we've learned is that usage growth has passed a new milestone, over 600 gigabytes per month. 1/3 of subscribers are now provisioned for gigabyte speeds. There's a new group of power users that have emerged, 5 terabytes and higher. And in this report, we're going to take a featured look at something we haven't really looked at before together, which is broadband usage in the commercial sector. The big picture on usage here is at the end of 2023, growth due to multiple accelerators are bringing usage and migration to speed tiers higher and higher than ever before and ever observed. Now, to take us into the number themselves, here's OpenVault founder and CEO, Mark Trudeau.
Thank you, Larry. So as this initial chart shows, we have grown to 641 gigabytes per household, which represents 9.3% growth over 2022. Interestingly, and for those of you that have been watching these webinars, reading our reports over the years, we traditionally have seen median usage grow at a faster rate than average usage, kind of indicating that the entire customer base is using more, and it's not just a few real power users dragging up the average. In this case, this is the first time we've really seen average usage growing at a faster rate than median usage. So that, in the reverse, indicates that we do have, in fact, super power users dragging up the average. And that's something we're going to address here as we go through the report. But these are pretty astounding numbers that just continue to grow. And as Larry pointed out a second ago, we fully expect that by the end of 2024, we will see average household usage at north of 700 gigabytes. Now, another area that we like to focus on is there's always been a strong correlation between speed and usage, and we'll get to that in a little bit in a few more slides as well. But we're now seeing 1/3 of all subscribers provisioned for gig speed. And the opposite of that is on the other end, we see roughly now only 10% of subscribers that are provisioned at that 100 megabits per second or less. So we continue to see a shift in the speeds that subscribers have. Operators are doing a great job marketing these faster speeds, and there's clearly a great, huge adoption rate for the faster speeds. But this gets to something Larry said, I think, up front a little bit, is because of this, because of the widespread adoption of these massive speeds, speed is becoming de-emphasized a little bit. It's not an issue so much anymore. Operators have done a fantastic job of staying ahead of speed demand, right? Subscribers can't even use a gig service, even if they subscribe to that service. So there has been a big shift that we've seen as a vendor in the space, much more towards quality of experience, making sure that subscribers are getting the speeds that they're actually subscribing to. So I think that's something that throughout this report, and as we get to the panel discussion, you'll hear more about. Yeah. So just one more point on this. We're now at half of where we were last year at this time in terms of subscribers at 100 megabits per second or less. So we are seeing a lot of our customers just do speed increases automatically without even requiring customers to upgrade it. So I think we're going to continue to see this trend where those slower speeds are just going to continue to represent fewer and fewer subscribers.
Thank you, Mark. Talking about power users or subscribers who consume 1 terabyte or more of data per month, they have a profound impact on the network, as Mark's already indicated. This power user category has seen incredible growth in the past 5 years, including the emergence of a new power user segment. And to get into that, we bring back Mark.
Thanks, Larry. So we continue to track what we consider to be power users and super power users, those using more than 1 terabyte, those using more than 2 terabyte. And those categories are, as you could see, growing pretty rapidly. To where now we're over 20% of subscribers that are using over 1 terabyte. We mentioned by the end of this year expecting the average household to be in the 700 gigabyte range, and we fully expect that average to grow to north of 1 terabyte in a few short years. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. 2 terabyte subscribers in north growing even faster. So that's another category that I think is important to continue to track, because these are the exact subscribers that can have a profound impact on the quality of experience of all other subscribers on a certain part of the network. I think we all have to remember, particularly in a DOCSIS space, these are shared networks with a number of subscribers on a given node sharing the available bandwidth. And when you have super power users out there chewing up a lot of bandwidth, it can negatively impact other customers. And we'll get to that some more here in a bit. Now, to kind of reiterate a little bit about the correlation between speed and usage, and we've talked about that over the years. As speeds increase, usage by default increases. Even if a subscriber's usage behavior doesn't seem to change too much, higher quality video is being served up when they watch streaming video and such. So they can have the same usage habits, but when they have a faster speed, they're going to chew up more data due to the video quality that is automatically served up. So in this particular case, we look at isolate a couple categories. On those slow speeds over there to the left, the amazing thing is we're still seeing of that roughly 10% of subscribers that are provisioned at less than 100 megabits per second. You have quite a few of those, 10% of subscribers actually using over 1 terabyte of usage that are provisioned for those slow speeds. Those are upgrade candidates. Those are subscribers that would be happier subscribers on faster speeds. And the operator obviously would be happier to drive extra ARPU and move those customers to those faster speeds. Over on the right, you see that of those subscribers that are provision for a gig speed, you're seeing 38% of those subscribers using over a terabyte. So again, that kind of shows you the correlation. This is a very good chart to demonstrate the correlation between speed and usage, but it's also good to highlight those slower speeds that really should be considered upgrade candidates. Now, in our last OVBI, we started, this definition of power user over the years has continued to evolve and change. It used to be, in our world, 250 gigabytes was a power user. Obviously, now that we're almost 3 times that in terms of average usage, that's no longer a power user. We focused in for the last couple of years on 1 and 2 terabytes. Now we're starting to look at even higher levels because we're observing this on our customer networks. So shining a light on those extreme power users, those that use north of 5 terabytes, it's pretty interesting to see. One of the key observations here is the amount of upstream usage. So first of all, of those subscribers using more than 5 terabytes, their average usage that we see is about 6.6 terabytes. Of that 6.6, nearly a terabyte of that is actually on the upstream. And again, back to the DOCSIS networks, this presents all kinds of challenges to keep up with that demand, given the capacity constraints on the upstream side of the network. And that is nearly double the amount or the percentage of upstream usage of those subscribers using less than 5 terabytes. So it's really fascinating to see how these subscribers are using the service. It's not just downstream. There's a heck of a lot of upstream, which again is a real issue and can present major problems for operators.
Now we take a look at something we've not discussed previously. The difference is we're going to talk about between commercial and residential users. And back to Mark for that.
Yeah, so I think here one of the key, again, focusing in on upstream for a second, is commercial subscribers are using a significantly higher amount of upstream usage, uploading big files, etc. It's probably not too much of a surprise, but certainly something that operators need to plan around as they make big pushes into the commercial space. So this chart really is something that just shows the growth over time of both commercial and residential subscribers. And one of the things to highlight here, and this chart doesn't necessarily do a great job of depicting this, but if we look at the spread between average usage of residential and business in 2019, we see a little over 200 gigabytes, right? That's the delta between residential usage and business usage. But if you look at 2020, and we all know what came in 2020, that delta grew to over 260 gigabytes, to where today that delta is now over 300 gigabytes between residential and business. And, I think some of the reasons for that are fairly obvious. Work from home, schooling from home, there's still a huge amount of people doing that. So that's contributing to the delta between residential and business, where you're not seeing the growth rate that you are on the business side on commercial plans the way you are on residential. And as you could see in 2020, that growth rate that we saw in residential hasn't slowed down. We never saw a reduction in usage once we kind of came out of the worst of COVID. So it's something that, I think is here to stay, obviously, and the numbers are only going to go up and to the right. And I think, we'll have to see if the delta between residential and business converges again at some point. But I think on the next slide, we're going to look at kind of what the usage pattern is throughout a given day on average. And this is where I think we've seen some differences post-COVID, right? And that is, we're seeing as much, obviously, more residential usage during business hours than we do see on the business side. In the past, we've seen, obviously, from 9 to 5 or so, 9 to 3 p.m., before kids came home from school, you would see more usage on the business side, and for those subscribers that have business plans, than residential. While they do converge a little bit, it looks like in the morning, you see consistently nearly every hour of the day, uh, subscribers on residential plans are consuming more data. One word of caution I would throw out there, and I'm sure the operators that are on the call know this, is we have and we see a lot of residential customers that should in fact be on business plans because they're running businesses either out of their house, or we even see business locations on residential plans sometimes. So it is important, I think, to really understand that and target those residential plans that in fact are running businesses and get them on the commercial plans. So that can skew the numbers a bit, but I think these are really just the observations that we've seen of late between residential and business.
Thank you, Mark. And now it's a chance for you to share your thoughts as well. We're going to ask you to take all this into account, such as 2023 ending the year with record numbers and heavy data usage and more subscribers provisioned at higher speeds. What is your number one concern? Is it data-driven network planning, addressing congestion within existing network, improving revenue among existing subscribers, addressing the quality of experience? We've talked about that a few times. Or is it all of them are number one priorities? Let's take a look at the results. Number one concern is improving revenue among existing subscribers, followed by, it looks like, all are number one concerns, and then addressing QoE, which we've talked about, addressing congestion, and then data-driven network planning is last in terms of number one concern. Thank you for taking the poll, and let's continue.
Yeah, so let me jump into just a little bit about these products. Up front, Larry talked about how we actually collect this data. None of this is survey data. This is all data directly from our operator networks. So it's real data. And we focus our solution suite on three major areas, one being network management and optimization, as you see there. Monetization, helping operators, identify those upgrade candidates, getting subscribers to move up to faster speeds, bringing more ARPU for operators is a big area of focus for us. Making sure that based on the network health, there's a high quality of experience. Subscribers are getting what they're paying for so that our customers can retain their subscribers. And then, educating subscribers, making sure that they're consistently aware of network health as well as their own usage patterns, et cetera. So this is a little more of a granular view of some of our solutions. I will point out the bottom left section, which we'll talk about when we get to the panel a little bit, is, we're all about collecting data, shining a light on things that operators should be paying attention to, but then also having a suite of what we call actionable and automated solutions that take action based on what that data is telling us. Is there congestion? Are there impairments in the network? All kinds of things can be garnered from the data, but unless you have actionable solutions, it's just basically borrowing your watch and telling you what time it is. So it's important to be able to take that analysis and turn it into something actionable, which is a big focus of us as a company. The nice thing that we've also found is when you have the data, we can help for that data to become the trusted source across the organization, right? We've sold into many network engineering organizations, and once marketing gets wind of the fact that data is available, they want to get their hands on it as well. And the nice thing about that is everybody's working off the same data set, right? As opposed to network saying they got this kind of data, marketing saying something different. This can be a very unifying suite of products for the organization because everybody is looking at the same thing. The data might tell us that, hey, there's congestion issues. We need to focus over here on congestion. And it's good for marketing to know that, so they're not out there necessarily promoting gig service in an area where there's not enough bandwidth to go around. So these are ways in which that data can be leveraged across the organization. Everything we do is about driving revenue, driving ARPU, reducing CapEx and OpEx spend, extending the life of your network, getting and squeezing the most out of the available capacity that you can get. Operators are spending a lot of money upgrading their networks. So we need to make sure we optimize that investment. And everything is driven towards just improving profits on this line of business, which for many operators, this is number one now, right? When we used to have, and this was a few short years ago, we had MSOs offering multiple types of services. Many of those MSOs have shifted to become broadband first or broadband only operators. So this is a key line of business, and it's something that we as a business have been focused on since our inception.
We're the solutions provider focused exclusively on optimizing networks and driving revenue for broadband operators. If you have not downloaded our report yet, a couple questions have come up. Can we see these charts? Can we get the slides? Everything that you've seen is in the OVBI that you could download right now at openvault.com. And of course, if any of the solutions we talked about are of interest, you can complete a contact form and we can get in touch with you to talk about that. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce two industry icons for a frank discussion about the state of the broadband industry. First is our founder and CEO, Mark Trudeau, who you've already heard from today. For over 20 years, Mark's leveraged his communication software domain and investment expertise to OpenVault. Throughout his career, Mark's founded and led numerous technology companies through tremendous growth, achieving success for customers and investors. He brings enormous passion, as you can hear, to helping providers improve their network performance through data analytics and solutions. He also remains inexplicably still a Dallas Cowboys fan. Our other panelist is our Chief Product Officer, Brady Volpe. Brady is a highly respected broadband technology and thought leader. Like Mark, Brady is a frequent presenter at industry trade shows, conferences, and seminars. He's published numerous articles in worldwide trade journals, which is instrumental in the pioneering of the successful implementation of PNN. We'll talk more about that. Brady's blog, podcast, and live stream have garnered a large domestic and international following, including major MSOs, cable operators worldwide. In his spare time, Brady enjoys snorkeling, reading manuals, and playing with kittens. So again, thanks everyone for joining us for this part, and let's jump right into it. Mark, let's start with you. We talked about the importance of improving the experience of broadband. What things do you think impact QoE, quality of experience, the most?
So I think there are many things that impacts quality of experience. Admittedly, we don't have visibility to everything, but the areas that we kind of lean into, we think we have some unique capabilities. One of those is what we call speed clipping. So the ability to understand, if a subscriber has enough bandwidth going into their house. So that's one thing that can impact their own quality of experience that is not a broader issue necessarily. It might be just that subscriber needs more bandwidth. So that can impact quality of experience. We talked about congestion on the network and how oftentimes we see power users, super power users, can have a very negative impact on others in the same area in terms of their quality of experience. So congestion is another area that we look a lot at. And the last one is something that Brady is going to talk about, I'm sure, is the health of the network, identifying impairments on the network. These are obviously living, breathing things that change all the time, and the plant evolves, and a lot of times we'll see network impairments that can have severe negative impacts on quality of experience. So those would be three particular areas of focus for us as a company.
Brady, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I mean, I think these are important things for people to be looking at. They're great opportunities to help manage networks, especially when there's congestion out there. So great insight into the network. And I think as we explore this, Larry, you mentioned something at the very beginning that QoE is becoming more important than speed testing. And we've looked at speed testing as being like the killer app in the network. QoE is becoming very important to every subscriber out there. Well, maybe not every subscriber, a lot of subscribers, particularly as we look at gaming, backhauling 5G over networks, and we're looking at new technologies that are coming out, like Apple goggles. Or that's something that is out of touch for a lot of people now, but when we look at what that is going to bring us, and as an evolutionary thing for the VR and AR, those technologies, I think, are going to require really, really tight capabilities for things like low latency on a network. And when congestion comes in a network, that just blows latency out. So QoE is, I really believe, something that's going to be very, very important for subscribers moving forward and can make or break whether or not that subscriber stays with that cable operator or maybe moves to a competitor.
Well, picking up on that, we talked about P&M, proactive network maintenance. How does that affect QoE? How can that help with QoE?
Yeah, I think that's a great transition and a great question for that. So we are really, really good in the cable industry at being reactive. Cable modem goes offline or a subscriber calls and complains about an issue. We know how to react to that. We've looked at P&M as being something that can be proactive, where we can identify failures in the network before it impacts the subscriber. The challenge with that is we're really good at being reactive in the cable industry. We've learned to use P&M effectively in the industry to be both proactive and reactive. And where P&M comes in is it can identify problems in the cable plant that we've not been really effective at with traditional test and measurement tools, because with P&M, we can see the true root cause of the impairment. So with traditional test and measurement tools, we can say, yes, the cable modem is getting low signal, or its SNR MER is poor, but we're kind of wagging the tail on the dog in that case. We're not actually identifying the root cause of the problem. And that's where P&M comes in very effectively, both proactively and also reactively, because now we can start to see those root cause of the problems, whether we're doing that in a reactive or proactive method. And now we can start to get down, rather than just going in and replacing the subscriber's modem, we can identify all the issues, solve those, and now start to give the subscriber really improved quality of experience. And I know, I like from the survey, everyone wants to get more revenue out of the subscriber. In order to achieve getting more revenue out of the subscriber, we got to make sure that we're giving really good quality of service, quality of experience, QoE, to that subscriber. And then we can start offering them more services, or at least make sure that they're really happy with the services that they're getting, to make sure not only do we retain that subscriber, but when we come back to that subscriber and maybe increase the fees that we're giving to them, they're less likely to come back and say, I can't justify these fees because my service has not been what I've been expecting it to be. And I think that's where P&M really starts to come in. It optimizes our workflow. It improves the quality of experiences, and it makes sure that we're not, maybe going to the subscriber's house to fix the problem when we know it's in the outside plant.
Anything to add to that, Mark?
I'll just say, I think Brady just laid out very well how this suite of tools is very cross-functional in nature, right? I mean, everybody wants, to Brady's point, drive more revenue. And as I talked about a little earlier, a lot of marketing's efforts are pushing people to higher speeds, faster speeds, and that's all well and good. But if the network isn't healthy, that could backfire very rapidly on an operator. So I think that's the power of kind of this visibility that you have across these different tool sets to be able to pull organizations together so that they're not operating in silos, as that can be very dangerous.
Let's talk about congestion for a sec. Earlier, we mentioned profile management application, or PMA, to improve network performance, such as improving capacity and network resiliency. Brady, coming back to you, how does PMA help with those? Yeah, so
before I talk about PMA, I want to take just a step back, a little bit of history. A lot of us are probably familiar with a capability that started in DOCSIS 1.1, in DOCSIS 2.0, in DOCSIS 3.0, and it's still in DOCSIS 3.1, which is called pre-equalization. And in pre-equalization, this capability is an awesome capability in all of these DOCSIS modems, but it's on the upstream. And what pre-equalization does is if there's an impairment on the upstream, the CMTS communicates to the cable modems, and it basically says, hey, there's an impairment. I'm going to make some adjustments in the cable modems to compensate for that impairment, so the subscriber really doesn't know that impairment is there. That gives the cable operator the ability to go fix the impairment. So this this capability's been around for a long time in the upstream. Fast forward now to DOCSIS 3.1. We've enabled some really cool technology in DOCSIS 3.1 called OFDM in the downstream and OFDMA in the upstream. And this is what gives us the ability to offer gigabit speeds, both in the downstream and even in the upstream, and even more than gigabit speeds. And we talked about this, how 38% of users are now getting gigabit speeds. Well, in order to support this and maintain this, if an impairment comes in either the downstream or in the upstream, which we know our cable networks are so target rich with impairments, this new technology called PMA, Profile Management Application, is constantly monitoring the downstream and the upstream OFDM and OFDMA channels. And when it sees an impairment, very similar to how pre-equalization works in the upstream, it makes adjustments to our OFDM and OFDMA channels to ensure that all of our DOCSIS 3.1 modems stay locked to those channels and are able to achieve the optimal speed that they're able to get on both the OFDM and OFDMA channels in the presence of that impairment. Now, just like pre-equalization in the upstream, PMA is not able to fix that impairment. It just ensures we get the maximum speed in both the upstream and the downstream in our DOCSIS 3.1 network in the presence of that impairment. So PMA is a great technology. We equate it kind of like pre-equalization, but it's there to maximize network throughput in the presence of impairments. So it kind of gives us, again, back to that QoE. We want to maximize QoE so we can maximize revenue.
Okay. Let's get a little more specific. Mark, I'm looking at you. I'm a broadband service provider, and I want to optimize my DOCSIS 3.0/3.1 network. I want to prioritize the migration of subscribers to it and improve their quality of experience once on the network. What are some tactical steps I can take based on what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so we see this a lot where there's not necessarily always a lot of science behind getting subscribers to upgrade to a 3.1 modem per se. And this is, something where operators, it's not like all of a sudden they turn all subscribers to 3.1, right? This takes time. It takes an effort. So prioritizing which subscribers to get onto the 3.1 network is something that our analysis can help with. And I think one of the things we're most excited about with coming together with Brady and his PNM tool is our experience with IPDR and usage related data to be able to analyze that data to help prioritize which subscribers are those real power users that would be better served at the faster speeds that a 3.1 modem can provide. And you couple that with which subscribers are having the biggest negative impacts on a certain part of the network that aren't yet on 3.1. Those are the subscribers we need to really be aggressive and proactively go out there, prioritize them to get that 3.1 modem, because that impacts not only their own service, but everybody around them. The quality of experience can improve as well. So I think, again, that's kind of the power of aggregating and analyzing multiple, what might seem disparate data sets together in one analysis, and because of the kind of insights that you can get from that.
Brady, anything to add on that before we go to our next question?
No, I think Mark covered that really, really well.
Well, we've talked about PNM and we've talked about PMA. Can you have one without the other, Brady?
Absolutely. I mean, you could have ice cream without your chocolate on top. I like them both together. So I used the analogy earlier about how pre-equalization is really effective in the plant. It buys you that time to go out and fix the impairment. And we can use that same analogy with PMA and PNM. So, PMA compensates for the impairment, but it doesn't fix the impairment. It gives you that extra capacity. And so the pairing of PNM and PMA is very, very similar. We want to have PMA in our network so it maintains that good quality of experience for our subscribers, because we know impairments are going to come and go. Typically impairments come and they don't go until we go and fix them. So we want that PMA layer there, so the subscriber has a continuously good quality of experience. If they're paying for that gigabit per second tier, we want to know that they're always going to, when they run speed tests, they're always going to have a gigabit per second throughput when they expect it. And they're always going to have high QoE. Where PNM comes in is when we see that there are impairments in the network and we see that PMA profiles are letting us know, hey guys, there's something wrong in the network. We want a tool that enables us to very quickly know, is that impairment in the subscriber's home? Or is it in the outside plant? How many subscribers are being impacted? And what is a true root cause of that impairment? And that's where PNM really shines. It allows us to know, what is the impairment? Where is the impairment located? And what's the best root cause to go and fix it? And once I fix the impairment, I want to know with a really high degree of confidence, ideally 100% confidence, that I've fixed the impairment. And because PNM is a software-based application, it's continuously monitoring our entire network 24/7. Whereas, maybe a handheld meter, that requires a technician to go out, plug it in somewhere in the network, and make a measurement. So the combination of PNM and PMA are really a yin and yang type of concept. PMA compensates for the impairment, lets us know there's impairment there. PNM also lets us know that there is an impairment there, but it tells us what the impairment is, where the impairment is located, and if that impairment is inside the subscriber's home or in the outside plant. And there's real benefits with knowing just that point alone, because we don't want to be sending a technician into a subscriber's home and annoying that subscriber when in fact the impairment is in the outside plant. That's something that we are going to send an outside plant tech to go fix that impairment.
Thank you. We've got a couple questions coming in. Mark, is there anything you wanted to add before I ask some of these additional questions that we've received?
Oh, let's jump into it.
The first question is about these solutions. How difficult is it to deploy them?
I'll take that one. I'll take that one, Mark. So, these are software solutions. So the difficulty is, whether first finding out whether a customer wants to host them themselves or host them in the cloud. Then it just becomes a matter of standing up a virtual machine if they self-host. Most of the time, the longest end of the pole is really getting connectivity to the CMTS and the cable modems. And, typically we're talking a matter of a couple of days to a week to get these deployed. And we're off and running, finding problems and fixing them.
A PMA question came in. Does your proactive maintenance tool mean you can help us stay out of subscribers' homes?
Yeah, so I think I covered that a couple of times already. That's probably a big opportunity and a big cost savings that we see with PNM. From the standpoint that I think a big aspect of PNM is that differentiation. Is the impairment in the subscriber's home, or is it in the outside plant? And that's probably for a lot of our customers a big focus that they look at is, let's target those outside plant issues first. Because once we start resolving outside plant issues, that can very quickly start to bring down the call volume that's coming into our customer service representatives. That starts to save money for us. It can reduce the number of truck rolls, the unnecessary or avoidable truck rolls that are going to subscribers' home, because these are outside plant issues. That starts to save money for the cable operator. So, lots of opportunities there, because today, if we're not using a PNM tool, we might be sending techs to subscribers' home when the problem's in the outside plant. And that both annoys the subscriber and also costs money to the cable operator, because those techs that are going to subscribers' home, they'll never fix that problem in the subscriber's home when it's in the outside plant.
Thank you. Two more questions, one actually tying back to the data that we talked about earlier. When you say all users are overall using more bandwidth, and it's not just power users driving up the average, do you think it's safe to say that this is mostly being driven by more video content being streamed? Are there any projections on what video streaming is going to do to bandwidth demands in the future?
Well, I mean, I think in our last OVBI, we took a deep dive into the applications being used that was driving, such high usage consumption. And if memory serves me, I think we determined that about 89%, I think, of all usage consumption was coming from streaming video. And so I don't think it's a big surprise. I think you are also seeing more and more live streaming sports events and such, which was always something that I think operators were a little bit afraid of, and it's here now. I think we're starting to see more and more of that. That's driving up a lot more consumption with streaming video, and frankly, we continue to see major cord cutting in the space. So traditional video is going away. So I don't foresee any slowdown at all in usage consumption levels, and clearly the big driver is streaming video. We also did see a fairly strong correlation between the superpower users and gaming as well, online gaming being another application that, while it's dwarfed by streaming video, it is a growing segment, and one that we need to keep an eye on as well, because I think, as we probably all know here, quality of experience for online gamers is absolutely critical. Latency becomes a major issue. And so it's something that we're going to need to continue to pay attention to. But yeah, Larry, I think the streaming video is clearly the main driver here.
And if I may just add on to that, there was a statistic that I thought was really enlightening in the OVBI report, was 1 terabyte users on the upstream. So I don't think these are gamers. I think these are content creators. There are a lot of content creators that, if we think of things like YouTube and all the different platforms in social media where people, whether they're doing shorts or whether they're doing long form videos and they're uploading those, that's a tremendous amount of traffic that, for every cable operator out there that's thinking about upstreams. If you're on a 42 megahertz return today, we got to be thinking about moving to 85 megahertz, 204 megahertz, starting to expand our returns, because a terabyte on a return, that's a massive amount of traffic, and our returns are starting to get saturated. We're really starting to move to a more symmetrical upstream and downstream than what we ever considered in the past, because the massive amounts of upstream traffic we're starting to see. And that's, for me, really, really exciting, because, we always have this feeling that, DOCSIS is going away. And I said this 30 years ago myself, the cable industry doesn't have a long lifespan, and here I am more than 30 years later, and it just keeps getting more and more capacity and traffic on our DOCSIS network. So we have to think about that as we think about things like QoE, how we manage it, and how we're going to continue to manage it, because they are getting saturated.
And I'd like to add on to that, if I may, Larry, real quick, is I think one of the, we have operators of all kinds, right, that come that we have as customers, but listen to these webinars, and whether it's a DOCSIS provider that's upgraded to 3.1 and has plans to move to 4.0, or it's a DOCSIS provider that has announced they're moving to fiber, all those things take longer and more money than anybody expects. So DOCSIS is far from, I think we see another 15 to 20 year lifespan easily for the DOCSIS providers. But the reason I bring that up is because if you're moving to 4.0, these tools that Brady is describing, PNM, PMA, et cetera, become even more important in a 4.0 environment. And again, even if you've announced the move to fiber, you need to squeeze as much bandwidth and as much optimization out of your DOCSIS plant as you possibly can, and extend the life of that plant until you can get to the point where you're building out all the fiber you need to. So I just wanted to point that out, that obviously we're a DOCSIS heavy company. We do have a lot of capabilities in the fiber space as well, but for those DOCSIS operators, it's kind of regardless of what your plans are down the road, these tools become even more and more important, because they do impact quality of experience tremendously. I would say just one more really quick thing about quality of experience from my perspective. It's not just, are you getting the speed that you're paying for? Everything Brady just described. Are we sending texts into people's homes? That is not a good experience for subscribers. They don't want that, right? Is that subscriber, because we can't pinpoint the impairment, having to call multiple times And that's not a good experience for subscribers. So when we say quality of experience, we need to look at this holistically, not just are they getting the speed that they're paying for.
Well, we talked about the F word being fiber. So our last question is tied to that, and we talked about PNM and PMA. The question is, I have a fiber network. Can PNM and PMA be deployed in a fiber setting?
Yeah, so I'll take that one first, Larry. So, I mean, fiber is part of the equation. For a long time, I've been so heavily involved in PNM on the coax side, but I've been asking the question, what is the interest of cable operators in doing PNM for fiber? And for a long time, the answer has been we really don't see a value. Well, that's starting to change as more and more fiber is deployed, and that fiber, those components are starting to age. And now at Cable Labs, we have a working group that is doing exactly that. We're looking at what do we need to look at, what do we need to monitor, what metrics can we get. At OpenVault, we're already plugging in and pulling data from fiber devices. Now, when we pull that data from Cable Labs, it's like, what do we need? We have a path and a strategy for PNM in fiber. So that's part of the roadmap. We know what we need to do. We have an understanding of what operators are looking for. It's now a matter of, really building that out and working closer with our partners right now to really build that product out. But so, I guess the short answer is yes. We know that we can do PNM in fiber. That's coming down shortly on the pike on our roadmap.
Thank you. Any final thoughts before we go to our close, starting with you, Brady?
I think, Larry, an important thing that you said at the beginning was QoE is becoming more important than speed. I think there's a lot of technologies that are coming, that are hitting us now, that's really going to start to shine. I think Mark made some good comments about QoE just isn't, it's really all encompassing. It is, how many times does a tech have to come to my house before we finally fix the issues? And as, the landscape is changing. We're getting more competitors. In my neighborhood, I can select from fiber, I can select from coax. As that starts to happen more and more, QoE is going to become more important to us. We're seeing speeds expanding. I think the expectation from our subscribers is I should be able to get not only gigabit down, but I should be able to have more of a symmetrical experience. So meaning gig down and 5 megabits per second up is not an acceptable experience for me when I talk about quality of experience. And so there's so many aspects of that have to be put into place. But if we can't deliver both on speed and quality of experience, we're not delivering a good network to our end subscribers. And there are tools out there that will allow us to do both.
Thank you for that. Mark, anything to conclude
I'll just
with?
tack on to what Brady said. I think he said it very well, but I mean, he brought up competitors, and I think, it's important to point out that in our history, we hadn't seen a year like we saw in last probably year and a half, where we started seeing subscriber reductions and retention issues amongst our customer base. And it's more competition is certainly driving a lot of that. As these networks fill up and there are quality of experience issues, subscribers start looking for other options. So I think, it's yes, we need to improve quality experience. We need to really put a focus on it. But we started to first start seeing real evidence of that not being taken as seriously as it needs to be, because again, operators have focused so much over the years on speed, and now that we're largely at, a lot of operators are very much at parity from a speed perspective. The focus has to shift to quality of experience to make sure these customers are happy, they're getting what they're paying for, and they remain happy customers for the long term. So. That's it from my perspective.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. And thank you both, Mark and Brady, and a big thank you to our attendees and your excellent questions. We had a couple technical questions that came in that wasn't for the group. We'll get back to you with answers if we didn't get to your question. We did see them, and you do matter to us, so we'll get back to you. This webinar will be posted on our OpenVault YouTube channel in a few days. And in the meantime, if you're looking to find out how our industry-leading solutions can help you get the most from your DOCSIS network, you can email us at sales@openvault.com or stop by our website, which is also how you can get your very own copy of our 4Q23 OVBI report. Look for our Q1 report coming out in just a few months. Thank you very much again. Take care.